Welcome back to Uncaged Leaders. I'm your hostess, Mariquita Solis, the Uncaged Heart Coach, a transformational coach who specializes in using emotional logic to heal systemic wounds of the modern world. This show is dedicated to the man who's ready to end the soul war and build a life of genuine courage and purpose. So today I'm very excited to have as my guest and spiritual mentor, Reverend Richard Burdick. Reverend Richard is the senior minister at Unity North Atlanta Church, where he leads with a deep commitment to spiritual growth and community. Richard brings a tapestry of experiences to his ministry, all focused on fostering cooperation, understanding, and the building of bridges between people of various spiritual, religious, ethnic, and cultural backgrounds. Reverend Richard is a passionate musician and educator dedicated to fostering a sense of empowerment and spiritual awakening in those he serves. He believes that every life experience is an opportunity for spiritual growth, and he emphasizes the importance of embracing both our human and spiritual aspects as a holistic approach to living and evolving. Through his leadership at Unity North Atlanta, Unity North continues to be a vibrant community where individuals are encouraged to explore and deepen their spiritual paths. Reverend Richard's mission of fostering cooperation and building bridges is the ultimate example of the internal work needed to achieve uncaged unity. So welcome, Richard. I'm excited to have you here as my guest.
And I'm excited to be here. And I'd like to meet that guy you just introduced. He sounds like a pretty nice guy.
Well, hopefully he's here.
Yeah, I'm bringing authenticity and the fullness of my heart, my soul, my life to your wonderful podcast.
Well, I'm excited about this because you've always been one of my great teachers, and I hear your words. They're always resonating throughout the day.
Thank you.
So, and you know what? Since I've been in the leadership classes with you, I've been more mindful about resting and taking breaths and being aware. So great lessons, and we're going to learn more today.
Well, I'll just give you I like to put a spotlight on things that I see are working, and you, my dear friend, are blooming and blossoming and shining in the most tremendous way. And I'm delighted to be amongst your light here today.
Well, thank you. I'm grateful for you. All right. Well, let's start talking about the man box. So, Richard, when you were a little boy, back in your childhood, when did you first realize the world expected you to be tough or unemotional? And can you share a specific memory of when you had to swallow your true feelings, and what was the immediate cost of that suppression?
You know, there's so many instances where I suppressed who I was, and I didn't live in the authenticity because my environment growing up, as beautiful and wonderful as it was, it didn't allow for authenticity. I remember at a very young age realizing kind of the old adage, kids are to be seen and not heard. And therefore my voice was not encouraged. My feelings were not encouraged. And it was a very safe environment, but it was not safe emotionally. Because if you had deep things that you dealt with and deep feelings and emotions that needed to be expressed, they got stuffed. And I was basically taught that's just the way you, not just as a man, but as a member of that family, if you got to handle your emotions, go into your room and handle them. Go up separate. So there wasn't a lot of support for an expression of anything near the heart. It was all very controlled. It was very systematic, and you just found your way to cope alone. And so it was a very alone childhood. Again, I'm not going to say it was bad or terrible, but I learned skills, coping mechanisms that I had to survive on my own. And if you got too vulnerable, then it was shut down very quickly. And so tears were something you dealt with by yourself. Anger, sadness, grief were things that you just managed on your own. And that was an environment that helped make me who I am today, but helped me really to the greatest degree to become more open, to become more receptive to the value and the gift of emotions, the value and the gift of those expressions that have consequences when you don't share them.
Yeah, and that's what researcher Judy Chu shows in her work, that little boys around 3 and 4 start shutting down and disconnecting from themselves and from others. And that's a great safety mechanism at the time. It's a survival skill. So when we look back, I mean, those little boys did everything they had to survive. But then
Mhm.
they're caught in that trap where they've shut down. And how does that doesn't translate well into the rest of life.
Well, if you don't learn the skills when you're 3 or 4, and for me, it was I don't didn't have the skills in middle school, which is one of the most emotional and difficult times in adolescence. And I look back at pictures of me, middle school pictures, and I can see a very depressed young man who was tortured really on the inside, who had never developed those skills. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, those skills carried me into high school, a very shut down high school career and into college. And, sometimes childhood goes into your 20s and your 30s because you haven't learned those childhood skills. And so you can act in ways that are a bit childish. And I did all of that.
Yes, and it's very sad because I feel as a woman, I've judged men before, not realizing they were in this trap of like, why are they acting like
Mm.
children? And because they were suppressing themselves for so long. And now as I switch to coaching men, I'm aware of the differences. I mean, we all have we have boxes that we're put in. So always being kind and empathetic and asking questions is crucial.
Well, I'll be real clear. Boxes can be really restrictive, but the boxes also kept me safe in other ways. A bit sheltered, to be honest, but so boxes that breathe, boxes that have movable edges, I think is a really healthy thing. Our box was very rigid in our household growing up, but it did give me some survival skills. It did give me some skills, and it also gave me some bad habits. But I won't call it all bad. I'm just going to say boxes are meant to be outgrown, like a crab in a shell. Okay, I've outgrown this one. And when I got out into the world, I began to grow up as a man, as a boy, as an adult into newer boxes. And what I love is that as I've grown into bigger shells and boxes, I've been able to help my family do the same. And so they're not the same family that they were when I was a child. I had young parents, who didn't have the skills. They weren't handed the skills. A father who never got the skills from his father and his father and his father before him. So I feel a little bit, I guess, proud is the word, that I've been able to break long ancestral patterns in my family history. And I'm just thrilled that the person I am today, I get to see that my dad is a person today who's also expanded his box.
Yeah, that is beautiful to see that growth in your family. I see my friend JJ is not the not the JJ that you know, a different JJ who's also a fan. She's a fan of yours behind the scene because she always hears the stories about Richard and Unity. JJ is a fan of yours that you don't know about. Anyway, thanks for watching us, JJ.
Well, I'm sending love to you, JJ.
All right. Now, so Richard, you always talk about the power of consciousness. So when a man lives unconsciously, relying on old habits and avoiding self-reflection, what's the ultimate spiritual and relational cost? I mean, what does that systemic state of unconsciousness look and feel like?
Wow, that's an in-depth question. Awareness, consciousness, presence, paying attention to the thoughts, mindfulness. That's what mindfulness is: paying attention to what you're paying attention to. And when it comes down to, if you haven't learned skills or developed skills, you don't know what you don't know. And so you're operating from a bit of a survival place and mindset, without the tools, without the skills, and even without the experiences. And so there is only the box would be the consciousness. The consciousness would be the box. There's a whole world of possibility, a whole world of emotion and safety that you don't know because you've never explored outside the box. And inevitably, I think life is set up to call us, all the oxen free, come out of your box. And you begin to see there's a whole world that's beautiful, that's amazing, that's holy, that's sacred, that you'd never experienced. So the consequences are really, you're shut down. The world doesn't get the gift of who you are. The world never gets to see the fullness of you because you've never allowed the fullness of yourself to be seen. And, on the other side, you've denied yourself the gift of knowing the beauty of another human being, or any human being, male, female, or otherwise. You have very surface level relationships, very surface level interactions, and it's safe, but there's a depth of magnificence and goodness that you've missed out on because the consciousness just doesn't know what's out there.
Yeah, and it can be scary to step out of that and into something deeper. So I'm very appreciative of those people that have been willing to take the risk to be vulnerable and to share stories that build connection, because I really need that for my soul, to be able to speak to people on a deeper level, because it hurts me inside when I can't.
I think we're all hurting on the inside. Again, you don't know what you don't know. The unknown is very scary. The mystery is scary, which is why I'm so grateful for my spiritual path, because it's made peace with the mystery as opposed to it being an enemy. But it is really fear driven. I can't open up this box or expand my viewpoint because I might get hurt. And hurt is not an okay thing to feel. And so you're actually taught the very thing that you're creating, a closed down world, because if you get hurt, you have no outlet to express that. And so it's just safer not to get outside the box, not to even wander or put your toe into the water of a different possibility, a different paradigm.
Well, that is very sad. And that's why we're doing this show. And I want to show you what JJ said. Yay, the great Reverend Richard. So, and JJ is very expressive and open, and that's why I love being with her yellow warmth. So, I mean, that was like that's somebody, when you have a soul level friend, is when you connect right away. And that is what she is, how it's always been for me. So it's a blessing to have those. And
the
she,
world, the world needs more people like that. So JJ, keep being yellow, keep being you, because people like that make it safer for people who have had the journey I have. That it's like I put my toe in the water, and it's like, wow, this was beautiful, this was amazing, and I didn't get hurt, but I was welcomed and embraced. We develop basic belief systems when we are very young, and I'll be honest, because that's what you've asked me to do, that I developed a very basic belief system at a young age, that everybody was in it for themselves, that they were going to eventually hurt you. And to be totally honest, I hope it's okay to say here, that basic belief system is that all people are assholes. And that was developed not only being taught that, but just the environment. Rely on yourself, rely only on yourself. And I didn't believe, because I believed that, I didn't find people like JJ. I didn't find the yellow people. I didn't find the people that went, wow, it's a lie. You've been told a lie. And there are a lot of people like JJ out there, like you, Mariquita, who are safe to be vulnerable with, who are safe to be authentic and real with. And the more you find those people, the more you realize there's a lot of them out there. And then really the greatest growth is the more you become one of them for others.
amen to that. And that is so true. And you can really find out a lot about someone when you ask them, like, what are the people out there in the world? I mean, what's your viewpoint? And just what you're saying, you can see what their belief system is. If the world is a harsh place, then they're not seeing the yellowness of life.
I tell my piano students to, when they're playing a piece and they finish the piece, and they'll say, oh, that was terrible. I messed up here. I messed up there. I messed up there. And I tell them, how many right notes did you play? And they said, well, too many to count. I said, well, that's the way life is, really. There are a lot of good notes. You have to be willing to count the right notes, count the yellow people, count the kind people, the loving people. And the more you count those notes, the more you find them. But that basic belief system that all people are jerks and that they're going to eventually hurt you because they're only in it for themselves, guess what? It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. I attract to myself those very people. And so when you shift the consciousness and the view and the intention, you begin to find more people like you and JJ, and they're everywhere.
Yeah, it's very true. You've got that filter on looking for, I mean, whatever you're thinking about, back to the thoughts create your reality,
Yep.
right? I'm going to filter and I'm going to see the hate that I think is out there in the world. Or I can say, wow, look at all the yellowness.
I
So
say
it
people will eventually show up the way you see them or you want to see them. And if they can't show up that way, they vibrate away from you. But that
exactly.
means total responsibility, which again, going back to my childhood, that's one thing I was taught in my box that is empowering to me today. Take responsibility for your life, take responsibility for your emotions. And that's what, when I got the spiritual overlay and blanket on that, I began to take responsibility for my experience to find the yellow people.
I love it. Yes. So yeah, if that's one thing you can remember, get out there and look for yellow, everybody.
Purple people are pretty great too.
Yes, you're right. All the rainbow here. So, all right. So, what about the years of performing with that mask? You know, the stoic mask where you're not crying and everything. What did that cost you personally? And how did those suppressing those feelings create the emotional void that a lot of men are going around with, like a
Mhm.
hollowness that it doesn't matter how successful you are, how many cars you have, how many houses you have, it's not filling it.
Yeah. I believe the ultimate consequence, to answer as quickly as I can with our limited time, is not only do people not get to see the value of who you are and the unique way that the universe has chosen to express as you, but you don't get the value of knowing yourself. If you play this game long enough, if you shut down long enough and live in the box long enough, you begin to not know who you are. And so it becomes such a habit to put on a mask. Who do you need me to be? And then going to a new situation, who do you need me to be? And the reality is you never get to the question, who does my soul need me to be authentically and transparently? And so it can be very lonely. It can be very depressing, which is what happened in middle school for me. I can see it on the pictures on my face. I didn't know who I was. I knew myself as a survivor. I knew myself as somebody who could be defined by what they did. I was a pretty decent piano player and I was a really hard worker, which I learned from my family, but I didn't know who I was. And so it was a manufactured personality. It was a manufactured spirit. And it took years and years and years to even know who I was, and I use the language God, but that doesn't matter what you call that energy of the universe, of light, of love. It chose to do business as me, and I shut it down. So I had no concept, no earthly concept of who I was. I was lost.
And did you realize that? I mean, so many men are not realizing they're wearing a mask, that they think that's who they are because it's created so early. It's as that defense mechanism. And were you aware of that?
No, not the least bit aware. What I did is to find any degree of meaning to life. I said, define myself by what I could do. Oh, I define myself as a hard worker. I define myself as a piano player, which is basically a wall that goes up. I define myself as a son, or I mean, the childhood went into raising foster kids. Well, I'm only defined as a father. I'm only as good as who I am as a foster parent. And the labels can be a box in themselves. They keep me safe, but again, it doesn't help you discover at depth who you are meant to be as a spiritual being. Everything was defined by being a man. I'm only a man and I do what men do. Great. That's wonderful. But that's a very limited definition. What is a man and what does a man do? I inherit it from my grandfather and my father, and I just perpetuate the stream of consciousness that is shut down. And so the consequences, again, it's very lonely, it's very isolating, and I guess I'd say ignorant. I had not blind. Blind's a better word. I was blind to who I was meant to be on the planet.
Yes, and so many men are suffering and they're not understanding why, and they keep trying to fill it with the external instead of the internal, and they're not even realizing what's lacking. They're just in that state of sadness. And well, actually, and that reminds me, everyone, please subscribe. And also, I'm starting Uncaged Circle. It's a men's group next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Zoom. So the information is in the description, and it's going to be real talk. And I will be happy to share my wounds. I have no problem telling you all about how I was in my own little prison and how I got out of that. And it's very similar, the shame that women go through with the shame that men go through. So it's going to be real talk, and it's to be supportive of men. So anyway, I wanted to say that before I forgot.
I'm really excited for the work that you're doing. I think it's needed on the planet. You mentioned something before the plug there that is important. How it manifested for me is if I just achieve more, if I just do more, or if I get another piece of paper, a certificate on the wall, or another trophy. I wasn't a bit of an athlete even as a small child. I was putting all of my value on what I could do, on the recognition that the outside world gave me, which again was a stepping stone to really not knowing myself. I'm not the trophy, I'm not the certificate, I'm not the degree. But what happens with men is we just work 10 times harder and we become workaholics and unhappy workaholics. So the achievement, there's a Buddhist term called hungry ghost. It does not fill us up. It cannot and never will fill us up. And unfortunately, when we get to that place, we can become volatile, angry, and abusive because we're so empty on the inside, even though the wall is covered with all kinds of accolades.
Yes, and I've seen that, and that is one reason that I switched over to this work, is having the effects on myself and counting on men and being let down in just different areas of life, and understanding what's going on here, questioning and wondering what's going on here. How can I support men as a safe space and be an advocate for them to help women understand better that the men are hurting, and if they're lashing out, if they're doing something, instead of taking it personally, let's stop and have a conversation about in a safe place, right? And see what we can do to help. And because what was very interesting and came up in the past, just one day, a few people said the same thing to me about the little boys being told, now you have to take on the role of a man. And how, and Judith Johnson brought that up to me, and how that was such a harsh thing to do to a tiny little boy. Like, now you're the man of the house. And I can only imagine the weight of that as a little child, and you really don't know that you're really not the man of the house. But some children, boys, are put in the position of being the man of the house at a young age. And how, I don't even know what the repercussions of that are. I mean, I can imagine that, but.
Well, it gets amplified. You're talking about ancestral wounding, not just in my environment. You're not the man of the house. It's the last 10 generations that have been told, man up. Suck it up, buttercup, get tough. And there's a time and a place that you got to grow up and be tough. But I think we have forced it on men in particular. And that ancestral wounding is amplified. It's increased generation to generation to generation. And we don't even know what it is, because society does not teach us to look at those things. And so the wound just gets perpetuated. The expectations get perpetuated. And it's unfortunate, you said women get kind of pulled into that vortex of abuse. They got to protect themselves. But the reality is the man is in a vortex of himself, of abusing himself, because he doesn't accept himself, because he doesn't know who he is. And so it is unconscious. They're acting out in ways that they don't even understand. Now, sometimes men are abusive just to be abusive. But I believe that there are a lot of unconscious men that are just trying to survive, who are beating themselves up because the accolades don't fulfill them, because they're being asked to assume a role. Nobody showed them how to do it. And so, and then we're told you got to be wiser, stronger, greater than. And how can I be wiser, stronger, and greater when I have no example of what that even means? And the vacuum, children get pulled into it. And if we can get to the cause, which I'm all about, is get to the root, the cause of why I'm behaving that way. And that takes, it's a catch-22. It takes me being vulnerable enough to get into therapy, to get into sessions and places where you're talking it through. Oh, that's weak. So you're told it's weak. You can't go to the place that's actually where the healing is going to be found. And unfortunately, a lot of people get pulled into that and get hurt because of this ancestral wound.
Yeah, exactly. And it's it's just unconscious. It just keeps going that you have to be a man and you have to shut down. And if you haven't learned how to feel, how do you relate to other people?
I haven't been, you're not just learn not how to feel, how to cope.
Yeah.
I've seen studies that say most men are running a low grade autism, that it has become an unmanaged emotional challenge that has actually become a mental challenge. We don't have the ability to access the truest parts of ourselves. I still
Well,
think there's hope, though.
yeah, there there is hope.
Always
So
hope.
right, and that's why we have these conversations. There's so much we could talk about here. I can't even. My mind is just all over the place here. But yes, with the little boys and the way that they are growing up, and the rates of suicide in our young men, and then the where the emotions that are accepted are violent. You can be angry and you can be lustful. That's okay, right? And but to be like a woman, to be kind and compassionate, and those are the feminine, those are defined as feminine and weak. And you don't want to be like that. And you don't want to be like a woman because they are weaker than you. And so where does that leave the women?
Well, as unfortunate victims of an unmanaged emotional body, anger is not a bad thing. Anger is a part of our human experience, but anger unmanaged with no place to land and to process, and especially if you're told to shut it down, creates an abusive environment here. And it's unfortunate. I'm not asking any woman to say, oh, well, just love them anyway. You got to protect yourself, but hold a container from a distance. Back up. I'm all about boundaries, and don't get pulled into the vortex, but hold the possibility that somebody who's dealing with this, no matter the worst behavior, and this is something I teach, I can love, there are some people I love much better from afar. I can stand back. Don't put yourself into that vortex that's going to just suck you in. Stand back and hold. Don't ever give up the possibility that healing can happen. Don't ever get up the possibility that somebody can suddenly have that epiphany, that revelation that says, oh my gosh, I found a place to manage this emotion, the fear, the anger, the depression. And once given it, men can change. But you don't want to put yourself into an environment where it's out of control, because there are unfortunate victims of men who can't handle it.
Very true. So, y'all, if you're watching, please let us know you're here. And if you have any questions, put them in the chat. So, when you're talking about living a virtuous life, can you describe a time when your own behavior wasn't really in alignment with that? Maybe you were avoiding an issue, dealing with something, and it was out of sync with your spiritual values. And what did that personal moral crisis feel like? And how did you choose to resolve the shame that you most likely felt in that area?
That's a good question. There are two things that come to mind for me. One of them, I think I was probably in fourth grade. I was a very small kid, very thin and smaller than the rest of my friends. And there was a moment where a bully was pushing his way in the playground. And I remember in that moment, something snapped in me, that I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. And I did something I'm not proud of to this day. I carry, but I played baseball, and I picked up a bat, and I became the bully. I broke his arm, and I took him down. He was 3 times my size, and there was a sense of pride. I stopped him, but that was an immediate gratification that then became, what have I done? What have I done? The truest part of me had seen what I had done humanly. And I remember that being a moment of awakening. I never want to hurt anybody like that again. But a realization that there was an uncontrolled rage in me that I did not like. And I knew it was out of congruity with who I was supposed to be on the planet. This happened again, not with a bat, but with words. I learned the skill of using words to break somebody's arm or break somebody's spirit. and I lost control. It happened to be a boss, so it was really, really unfortunate that it happened. But I let loose, and it was the same feeling in me. What are these words coming out of my mouth? They're not in congruity with my soul. But again, this was in my 20s, and it was the same coming face to face with myself, that I had shut down so much within me that I could no longer control. So it was out of control with language, just like it had been out of control physically when I was younger. And I began to want to answer that part of me that says, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're on a quick road to destruction, not only of yourself, but the people you're going to take out with you, because you can damage a life with the words you speak. You know, it's the old adage, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Words hurt. And men who have not gotten in control of their mouth and their emotions behind their words damage lives forever. And I think probably my spiritual journey was the recognition that I did not want to be that person. I did not, I come from a long line of people that can use words to attack, to wound. And I said, it stops on my watch right here. I did not like it. I resigned from that job and began a spiritual journey to go, let me find the part of me that has been closed down. Let me find the part of me that has never even been known. I would love to say it happened overnight and the epiphany happened, and it didn't. It was a journey of falling down and getting back up, letting words come out of my mouth that I didn't like, apologizing for them, making amends, and then doing it better the next day. But it's been an ongoing journey, and I would love to say that it ends at some point, but I'm on that journey today. You know, we go unconscious. I go unconscious. And that little child in me, that little boy that was hurt at some point, that was out of control with a bat, still exists in me. And I have regular conversations with that part of myself to go, that's not who you truly are. I understand you're afraid. I understand you're angry. I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, but this is what came up for me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I love that way you take care of your inner child and you're aware, because I think, I mean, many people live a whole life without even looking at those little children inside of them that are hurt and wounded, and they're still being triggered by that. I mean, by the little child inside is being triggered. I know that for me, I don't like waking up alone at night, because I remember as a little girl, I would wake up and I would be scared that my mom wasn't there, and she put a stuffed
Mm.
animal on my back. And I remember being terrified and waking up feeling there's some that I thought this was my mom, and it was a stuffed animal, and that just
Mm.
fear, and so I have that a lot of times. And so understanding that trigger and really trying to be soft with that little girl inside of me who's still scared, and acknowledging that. I mean, it's something scary to think about. And I feel scared sometimes when I go to sleep. But
Mm.
I think it also takes courage to be able to look at it and speak to that tiny child, and not
Mhm.
to say, shut up. I mean, but to be gentle and not to see that as something negative.
Well, and it takes courage for those. I would love to say that there's an epiphany that I had on my own. I began to find people who would love me through my bad behavior, people who would forgive me through my bad behavior. And I often use a story of my friend Michael Moran, God rest his soul, who was in trouble as a teenager, and he's in jail yet again. And his mother came to him and sat on the other side of the jail cell and looked him square in the eyes, and she only had one thing to say. And she says, I don't know who you're pretending to be, but I know who you are. And when you figure it out, I will be here. And then she walked away and left him in jail for 3 days. And I think, there are the courageous people in my life that I can't thank enough, who sat with me during the dark night of my soul as a kid, as a teenager, as a 20, 30, 40-year-old. And even today, people who are willing to sit in the fire and know that there's a refining process going on. They're out there. Maybe they're the yellow people or the purple people, I don't know. But they're the people who are willing to sit in the fire with you as you go through whatever you're processing, that teaches us that there is safety in this world, and that we're not defined by our last action, but by the one we're taking right now. And so I'm really grateful for the people in my life that helped me on this journey. And that's kind of why I'm in ministry. I want to help other men, women, children find find that same safe place and create a safe place in an environment, whether it be church or a social setting, where it is safe to express, to explore, and to heal.
That's beautiful. Yes,
Yeah,
we
so I hope for a lot of people, I don't know who you're pretending to be right now, but I know who you are, and I will hold fast to who I know you to be. People will eventually show up in that way, and that's just me paying it forward to the ones that did it for me.
and that's beautiful, and that's allowing them on their process, not forcing them. I need you to be that now.
Yeah.
I see and I stand with you. I know who you are. And yeah, I love that. And so that is a great segue into what I was going to ask you about unconditional love. So, and also, y'all, please, I know y'all are watching quietly. So if you have questions, please let me know and let us know who's watching. So we talk about unconditional love, what is it like to really have a partner or mentor that can offer that radical, unconditional acceptance and non judgment, making you feel safe to completely fail, fall down over and over, and have them supporting you and standing by your side?
It's and unconditional love sometimes gets misinterpreted. It does not mean that you're going to fall down over and over and over, and I'm just still going to be there. The unconditional love can also be accountable. So sometimes tough love. And I look at the master teachers that I follow, spiritual teachers and others who have taught me that love shows up in many different forms. Unconditional love is I'm going to love you no matter what you do. Sometimes it's from afar, sometimes it's in the arena, but it also is accountability. Is that really the way you want to show up? Is that really who you are? And those questions cause us to dig deep. But I don't see that healing can happen without the unconditional love that says, okay, no matter how bad you behave, I'm still going to be here when you get out of jail. I don't know who you're pretending to be, but I will be here when you figure it out. That's unconditional love. It doesn't say, I write you off. We're no longer, related, and I'm cutting you out of my life. I hope you die. There are plenty of those people on the planet. The people that are changing the planet and changing lives like mine are the ones that are saying, this is not who you are. And I will continue to love you, even though your behavior is not matching who I know you to be. That's what I try to do for people, because we're all going to fall down. We're all falling down together and we're all getting up. But it is not a codependent place where I just let you keep being a jerk. It's where I'm willing to be a safe place to talk about you're being a jerk or I'm being a jerk, and I'm going to love you anyway. And that allows my mind, my heart, my spirit, and anybody's to exhale, to soften and go, wow, there is something greater than my fears and my anger. And it's okay to be there.
Yeah, and what you're talking about is empathy and compassion, and being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and realizing that we are not perfect. So I can be with you when you're expressing in a way that is in alignment with who you really are, and that's not dangerous to anyone. And one thing I remember you said was, when now I don't know if we're going off on a tangent, but when
I
when
love
I'm
tangents. Let's go.
when I'm conscious, I'm safe. But when I'm not living in consciousness, I'm not safe for myself or others.
I'd like to say we're one breath, one heartbeat, one thought, one moment away from being unconscious. And so that when I talk about consciousness, that's what I teach is stay awake, stay present, stay mindful, stay aware. Because going unconscious, I'm one idea, one thought away from that little kid with the baseball bat showing up again, because he's now afraid again. And when I'm conscious, I can tell a little kid with the baseball bat, you're okay. We've got this, and we're going to walk through this together.
Yeah, I mean, it could be like this. I mean, trigger. We got to learn to take that breath before we react and see what's going on inside of ourselves. Is it that little boy in there
Mm-hmm.
that's getting afraid, and now I'm going to lash out, or is it the 50 or 60-year-old man that's right here that's going to
Yeah.
take a breath and say,
But what the breath does, the breath reminds the mind you're not about to die. You're okay. It reminds your body you don't have to panic. It reminds the heart and the spirit to slow down. But breath and spirit have the same root. The word spirit comes from the same place that breath does. And so what it does, it reminds the being, reminds me anyway, I'm not this experience. I'm not this condition. I'm not these feelings. I'm not these thoughts. I'm not these actions even. There's something greater going on. And so I'm not having a saber-toothed tiger that's about to attack me, that actually I'm on the edge of something beautiful, some growth, and breath absolutely leads me there every time.
Well, yes, it's very powerful. So I hope everybody's listening to this. JJ is saying, we all need encouraging friends and mentors to also celebrate our wins along with our struggles too, to reinforce our amazing accomplishments, which is so important too.
Amen. That'll preach, JJ.
I know JJ is very sweet. So she's a vegan friend of mine, and she is about compassion, non-judgment, and being kind. I mean, so yeah, as a vegan, I believe in kindness, and I understand that people are, I mean, they're on their own journey, and it's not up to me to force people to be any way. It's my job to live in alignment with who I am and to really be my mission is to be the voice of compassion and understanding and empathy for others. I'm not a saint. And so I
Wait a
don't,
minute, I thought you were.
I'm not a saint. So I'm not here to judge anybody. If you fall down, that's fine. Come over to me. We'll talk about it. We'll get back up together. Right. So that's really what I want to do. And JJ saying, I appreciate you both, the work you put in to help people. Thank you, JJ.
Well, when you mentioned this idea of forcing, if you're trying to force somebody to be different, it is bumping up against the little boy that says, oh, now we're in competition. Now we have to fight each other. And so it has the exact opposite result. If you're trying to push somebody and shove somebody, the male mind, again, ancestral wounding is, oh, we're going to battle. So if you're forcing it, it's actually counterproductive to the healing that's needed. Because that mindset, that little neener machine between my ears is going to go, okay, I got to get a bigger weapon, which is why we have wars on the planet, which is why we have unkindness, and even in religious circles, my God can beat up your God, because the male mindset, the masculine mindset has dominated religion. And so our religions get into battle because it's got an undercurrent, subconsciously, unconsciously, I have to win, because I'm not a man if I don't win.
Wow. Oh my gosh, yeah.
That exists at the deep fabric of the masculine mindset. Now, not nearly like it used to, because there are people like you, like me, like all of my friends in the church, and my friends who don't even care about church, who are willing to open up and to create a new paradigm and a new idea and be vulnerable enough to go, I'm hurting, I'm sad, I'm weak. But the master teacher Jesus said, blessed are the meek, because the meek are going to inherit the world, the earth. I hope that's the case, because it's not working the other way around.
No, it's not. And I was about to ask you about that, because asking for help is often framed as weakness, and we're told not to do that. Where I'm independent, I don't need you, Richard, and you don't need me. Anyway, but we know that when we say, hey, I need you, I need your help, can you help me, that's the first step of courage, right? What kind of safe harbor did you rely on to find that vulnerability, courage that you needed to break free from this system of oppression and that relentless just attack on yourself?
Mm-hmm. Again, I'll be grateful for the line of people, the line of men who demonstrated the way for me. They didn't teach it, they didn't preach it, they didn't write about it, they demonstrated it. And I watched. We are a smart species, the human race. And when we see an example and we go, wow, there's a different result, it speaks to our soul. It bypasses that programming, it bypasses that knee-jerk response, and you just get to witness it. And sometimes the person doesn't even know you're witnessing, but wow, that man wept, and look what happened as a result. That man found a more kind, loving way to express their frustration and their anger, and I saw that. And our soul goes, I want that too. And it may be completely subconscious, but eventually when we're in that environment long enough with enough men, women, people who are demonstrating this other way, our soul is given a little bit of breath. Well, maybe I can try it a little bit. And it's scary. It's still going to be scary. There's nothing easy about it. But it's so I've tried to, as a man, live by my example, to pay it forward as the men who showed me that it doesn't have to be the way it's always been.
Yes, and that's what we need, strong men who are willing to show emotion, vulnerability, and be courageous and not to judge, but to hold a safe space because I know that men are afraid. They'll say, I showed emotion to women, I showed my feelings, and then they turned it around and used it against me.
Mm-hmm. It's the great paradox. You said it's strong. It takes a lot more strength to be vulnerable. It takes a lot more strength and courage to push against the paradigms and the knee-jerk responses. That takes more guts and more courage. And so it's to me the ultimate masculine courage and strength. And yeah, we can plead a case. I know a lot of men that will just say, well, I did it once or twice and I got hurt. Again, you're counting the wrong notes. There are plenty of right notes out there, and we need to be gathering evidence to plead the case for a softer, more gentler masculinity, a softer and more gentle human race. And there's plenty of evidence. We have to be willing to seek it and plead that case.
You're right. We do. We have to be the voice, no matter what. We still have to keep going and shining. And if we get hurt, I mean, that's part of life. Feel the hurt, acknowledge the hurt, reach out
Mm-hmm.
for friends. Like I'll reach out to you. I feel hurt, and you'll support me, and then we'll get back up and go out and shine again.
You know, I
So
like to say that angry people will find reasons to be angry. Hurt people will find reasons to be hurt. You're looking where your attention is, where your focus, where you're looking, you're going to find it. And so if you're intentionally looking for reasons to prove that love is stronger than fear, you're going to find it. If you're intentionally and purposefully looking for opportunities and relationships that love is more powerful than my anger, you're going to find those things. It has to be a convicted journey, though. You can't do it once or twice. You have to stay the course. And that's what's so hard. It's just the easier path. It's actually the coward's path to just perpetuate what you learned, perpetuate the negative thinking, to perpetuate the limited thinking of what a man is. That's the easy path. It takes a lot more warrior energy to go, love is more powerful. And I will, and I don't like to use the word fight, but I will propel love forward, knowing that it's going to make me more of a man than maybe I thought last year.
that's beautiful. I love that. I feel the power in that statement. And yes, that authentic love, that unconditional love with safe boundaries is beautiful. And that's the force that will change the world.
Yeah, that in safe boundaries, there's the key. It doesn't mean you're never going to get hurt. It doesn't, but it does mean that you're not going to give up when you get hurt the first time. Oh, see, there's my case. I'm going to plead. It means you stay the course, but you are going to get hurt. That's part of the earthly experience. But it's knowing that I can even love the person who hurt me from a distance. And transformation then is not just individual. It's not just my transformation. I feel responsible as a man, as a human being, to transform the planet. And so every small act is part of a drop into the ocean of the consciousness of the whole human race. And it can feel hopeless. Absolutely. I'm making that much difference. But you make that much difference. I make that much difference. It adds up and it's cumulative. And suddenly the earth is in a different place than it was when I was a kid.
Yes, amen to that. So let's say that there's been a crisis or a breakdown in a relationship, the rupture, right? And so it's so important to have the rupture and repair. What 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 is the definitive spiritual and relational action that a man must truly take to achieve the repair? And we're not talking about a simple shallow I'm sorry or apology, but something that the man would be able to prove that his commitment to integrity is genuine. What does that look like?
Well, I'm going to go cut right to the chase. I say it a lot. Talk is cheap. You and I can talk, and I can talk about these principles, and that's wonderful, but words fall often on deaf ears. Let me demonstrate through my life. Let me demonstrate through my actions that I truly am remorseful, that I want it to be different. Um, words are easily thrown out and meaningless, but actions, I've heard it said, Maya Angelou, I believe, said that people will forget what you said 5 minutes after you say it, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And the reality, my actions are creating a higher feeling and higher vibration than my words will. My actions are that which demonstrate that love is driving the bus and not just getting through it. So asking for forgiveness is a first step. Um, Acting in such a way that you are worthy of that forgiveness is much deeper.
Yes, and I love that, the way I mean, you reminded me of that Maya Angelou quote because it's true. There's certain people that I have a bad feeling about, a negative feeling, and I wonder, "Why am I feeling that?" I can't remember why, and but I remember the feeling. So,
Well, and sometimes I'll be honest, there is projection, that the feeling you're having about a certain person has nothing to do with that person and everything to do with something that happened when you were a kid. The hurt that you experienced when you were 20 years old and now you're 50. Um, Being mindful again, everything, all roads lead to consciousness. It's my answer to everything. Stay awake, stay present, and stay aware.
right, exactly, right. Yes, and that means I mean, well, catch ourselves on autopilot and bring ourselves back. So, and put some structure in your day where you are taking the stops to say what's going on instead of just going from, from appointment to appointment or whatever, this to this to this to this without any breaks.
Well, and that apology, is also to yourself. Oh, I
Mm,
screwed up. I screwed up. I blew it. Oh, I forgive it. No, no, no. Do something different to make sure you don't lash out like that the next time. Do something different because it's as much as reconciliation to your soul as it is to the person in front of you. I was out of congruity with the love I was created in and after. And it's also the same, it's an internal and an external journey. And so if it's just an external, okay, I did the right thing, I apologize, and then I gave you a gift, there's also an internal thing. And it's not about the gift I give you, it's about the behavior that has changed and shifted. But if I am only doing it for you to make you happy, I haven't made peace with my soul. The healing isn't happening this direction, which is where really it all needs to go, is I was out of congruity with my divine self. And so I'm going to make amends to myself as well.
yeah, and that's beautiful. And tell us again about the definition of sin that
Oh,
you.
well, sin is just an archery term. Your religion has absconded the idea of sin. It's just an archery term. It says, I missed the mark. I missed the center. That's it. And you're not beating yourself up. That was a bad shot. Let me try again. I'll make a better shot. Get closer to the center of my own soul, the center of the soul of the person in front of me. And that's where God happens. Because there is only one of us. Right now, there's only one of us on this little podcast because we belong to each other. We are cells within the body of love itself, finding a way to interact with each other, both necessary, both on a journey of remembering who we are, what we are, and the essence of all creation, which is love.
Amen to that. And I see that Elizabeth is here, our our
Hi,
wonderful.
Elizabeth.
Thank you for watching. She's saying this is wonderful. And so, as we come to the end of our show, I'd love for you, if there's a man watching that's really struggling and not knowing how to get out of it, what would you say are some first steps to really getting back in touch with that inner peace that is his core being?
Well, I guess at the risk of getting 1,000 phone calls, call me, call me. Let's get to know each other. But the reality is, there are people, the examples that I talked about, they're in your life, and you may have labeled those people as weak in the past. You may have labeled them as less than man. And the reality is, they're there. And so, if somebody who's listening, who's really feeling that inner burning, that inner fire to do life differently, to not do it the way you've always done it, go have a conversation with that person that you have deemed is safe and is demonstrating that quality. It's that scene from Harry Met Sally where they're at a table and I want what she's having. Again, you're going to go find those men in your life, whether it be me or somebody. You go, I want what you have. How did you get there? Can we sit down and can we talk? And I think one of the most beautiful things of 12 step is it puts men together who have been through a similar journey. So find the men who took 60, 70, 80 years to discover who they were and go talk to them. Live in their energy. Birds of a feather flock together. It's there's an energetic exchange that is essential to the healing of the planet. So whether they be, I've seen teenagers, tell me how you got to your place. You're so developed spiritually. I want to know what it is you're reading. I want to know what it is you're doing and how did you get there. And when we share the good, we share the wealth, we share the growth, it's energetic. And enough of us do that, there's going to be this energetic shift for the whole human race that men no longer behave by that old paradigm anymore. So go find people. And I said, call me, call anybody and say, I want what you have.
Yes, I love it. And yes, call me too. Again, text me or where you can find me on this. And also, again, I'm doing the Uncaged Circle coming up Tuesday. All this is in the description. We have International Men's Day. We're filming for Sunday. If you want to be a part of that, I'm going to be talking about the half system, which is half. If you're operating only on logic and have shut down emotions, how is that going to work? It's not logical. And I'm going to be talking about that. So, and then where can people get a hold of you, Richard, now that the whole world is going to be calling you?
Oh, I better get some extra phone lines. But Unity North Atlanta Church in Marietta, Georgia. That's where I'm at, and I'm really an advocate of returning phone calls. Now, if I get 10,000, I may not be able to do that, but I would be really hopeful that if this little brief conversation we had hit 10,000 men, I believe that we're a little bit closer to that critical mass where the old paradigm just dies off. But Unity North Atlanta Church in Marietta, Georgia, call the church, and I pretty much live here. This is a home away from home, and we're doing the work that we've talked about today. And Mariquita, you're part of the leadership team doing the work here at Unity North, and one conversation at a time, one moment at a time, one breath at a time, we are changing the planet. So thank you.
Yes, and y'all catch the Unity North live stream on Sundays. That's on the YouTube channel. That's good stuff. You'll see Reverend Richard singing in all his glory. So,
and sometimes I get accused of being a preacher. We don't have preachers in the Unity movement, but I get passionate because the work that's happening in this community and happening on this podcast is so necessary. It is so important.
Yes, it is. And I see a lot of uncaged leaders out there watching us, like Elizabeth Kempton and JJ, and everyone watching behind the scenes. Richard and I believe in you, and we're standing for you. So we're going to make this place and this world compassionate and loving and strong. So thank you.
I love that. Love and strength are partners. Masculine and feminine are partners. And when they come together, look out. This world is going to be the Garden of Eden again.
It is. You're right. I see it. So thank you so much for being here, Richard, and everybody for watching. I'm just gonna be beaming all afternoon because when we come together, that energy just explodes.
All right. Let it explode. Let love happen everywhere.
No. All right, y'all. It's hard for me to say goodbye, I guess, but y'all, this has been wonderful. So thank you for joining Richard and everyone else.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.